The following story is going to be told in two parts due to its length. I get a lot of stories emailed to me, and this one in particular was pretty complex, pretty lengthy, but it shows how scammers will operate and how complex some of the stories and some of the scams are. This is her encounter with a man named Jefferson. I met Jefferson on Facebook. He sent me a random friend request telling me that he had seen my comment I made on a Facebook group. I'm in tons of groups. And he just had to message me and tell me that he thought I was very smart and classy. I thanked him for his compliments and we started chatting from there. He said that he's 40 years old and I'm 54 and that he's in the army on deployment in a location close to the Turkish border. He said his wife died 5 years ago from cancer and that he has a son named Marvin who is 10 years old. He told me his son lives with his sister in Texas while he's on deployment, and that after his deployment, he's going to retire. I remember telling him that I was sorry to hear about the death of his wife, and I hope that his son finds love and comfort in his dad and they spend as much time as they can together as possible, and it must be hard with him being deployed. Jefferson said it was, but that he was going on a secret mission into Iran for the U.S. government, and they're paying him an extra $3 million to take this mission, plus his regular pay. So once he gets his final mission done, he plans on coming home and retiring and becoming a store owner. He asked me about myself, and I told him pretty much I'm 54, I'm older than you. He told me age is just a number, and I told him I live in eastern Tennessee. I'm divorced, and the reason why is because my husband had eyes for everyone but me, and he cheated continuously during our 10-year marriage. So we divorced and never had kids. This was my second marriage, though. So the thought of dating or even marrying someone was nothing I was craving. I told him this, and if I meet someone, great. If not, I'm okay being single. Jefferson asked me to add him as a friend, and I did. He sent me tons more pictures of himself and his son, his sister, and the home he has in Texas. He said he also has a home in California that's a vacation home on the beach in San Diego. I told him I'd never been to California before. I'm just a simple woman who lives in the country. He told me that he had been to East Tennessee before and, quote, loved village women, which struck me as an odd thing to say, but I just let it go. He asked me if I'd ever dated online, and I told him once I met a man from a local dating site in a singles chat room, but it didn't work out. He asked me if I dated men often, and I told him no. Jefferson told me, since losing his wife, that he had trouble trusting or opening his heart. I told him, well, maybe that comes with time. He asked me if we could exchange phone numbers, and I told him sure, and we started talking on WhatsApp, and he had a Texas phone number. He would send me photos of where he was located in his military barracks and that he was nervous about the upcoming mission, but he felt safe sharing things with me. I worked full time during the day, so we would spend our evenings and late nights texting and chatting. He told me he was born in Spain and that his mother was a Spanish dancer who traveled the world, and he never knew his father, but his mother told him that his father was an Italian man, and Jefferson would travel the world as a child with his mother as she danced across Europe, China, and Thailand. He said that he would go traveling and he was in a traveling school, so he learned and picked up a mix of accents from all of the travels due to his mother's work. He asked me not to make fun of his accent when he would call me. I told him I'm not like that and I don't make fun of anyone. The first time he called me, he spoke very quietly but had a very thick accent that I've never heard anything like it before. He said people would make fun of him because he had different teachers growing up, and one week he would go to school in Germany, then his mother would have to travel to Russia for dancing, and then Thailand and so on, so he never had a grasp of languages in one location. I told him he sounded fine, but in reality, I struggled with his accent, and sometimes I would have to ask him several times to repeat himself. He told me the story of how he met his wife and all about his son. He would often send me pictures of his son, and he asked me what I did for work, where I lived, if I owned my home. I told him I did, and I lived in a beautiful country setting. I had a lot of land and would often mow my grass on my riding lawnmower. In fact, that was my profile photo when he met me, and I do all my own home repairs. Jefferson told me that he would love to be the man in my life and help me with working the land. I told him I've been doing this on my own for so long that, yes, it would be nice to share the load with someone, and we continued our nightly talks. Jefferson, though, would vanish for a few days at a time. He told me mostly due to training and mission meetings, but sometimes he said he was so ashamed because the military freezes his bank account until missions are complete and then pays him. And sometimes his phone runs out of minutes, and he talked so much to me that he ran low on minutes. He even showed me a screenshot of how his phone was out of minutes. He asked me if I could buy him some iTunes cards to load his phone, just $100 at first, and then he would ask for more, but I felt like since it was me using all his minutes, I should help him out. As a side note, scammers are now making a fake phone photo showing that an iPhone is out of minutes and it needs an iTunes card to load. In reality, that's not how iTunes cards work. Jefferson told me that military life was hard and the Army wasn't like it used to be. For example, he told me his foot had gotten a bad cut from a previous mission and that the Army charged him to sew his foot with stitches and for medicine. Otherwise, he would have gotten a bad infection. He had nowhere to turn to ask a family friend for the money. It was $4,000 to pay for the injury. He couldn't ask his sister because she was already taking care of his son and strapped for cash. And now, since he's doing this mission, his loan payment was coming up, and he wouldn't be able to transfer the money for the loan because the military is holding his account. He asked me if I could make the loan payment for him, and once he got back to the States, he would pay me back double. I told him I could help him, but he would have to promise to pay me back, which he did. Jefferson gave me the name of a woman in Georgia at a Wells Fargo account, and he said that's an old friend of his mother's, which, for record, his mom, he said, passed away when he was 18, and she was depending on this loan payment. I told him I'd do the transfer, but please promise you'll pay me back, and again, he promised he would pay me double. I did transfer the money, and Jefferson and I talked about it, and he felt so bad. I showed him the screenshot that I had paid for the loan via bank transfer. He was to leave for another mission, and he told me his commander picked him and two other guys to go on a mission into Iran to get some secret government documents. And if he accepted the mission, he would get millions and could just easily retire. He said he was scared of this mission, but it would secure our future, as he wanted us to be together, and the money would be put away for his son's college, and he wanted to buy me new lawn equipment and tractors for my property. I told him he doesn't have to do that, just pay back the money for the loan that I gave you, but he said he insisted. I had mentioned to him my fence had fallen in a storm recently, and my homeowner's insurance was being a pain about repainting the fence and fixing it. I told him I would rather just buy the materials and fix the fence myself. Jefferson told me that he had a friend in Texas who deals in fencing wood and lumber material. And I told him locally the material here for the lumber store would be around $5,000. Jefferson told me his friend could send me the materials for the lumber yard cheaper. Jefferson gave me the name of a bank account of a lumber company and said his friend quoted him $1,200 for all the materials and he would ship it directly to my house. It was a Bank of America account, but the name on the account was a lumber company, LLC. He said his friend Victor, who owns the company, would ship me the materials for free, but I'd have to pay the cost of the material. It was so cheap. I was elated about this, and he gave me the email address of his friend Victor, and I emailed him a list of what I needed and pictures. Victor emailed me right away and said the materials were cheaper. He said if I wired him the $1,200, as Jefferson had agreed to give him a discount for his friend into his account, he would ship next month the entire load of materials for my fence, and Jefferson told me by then his mission should be done and he'll come help me rebuild my fence. It was like everything was going perfect. Victor gave me his order sheet from his lumber company, and it looked so legit. Even after I transferred the money, he gave me a bill of sale and a tracking number for a global trucking company who was prepared to ship my items. When I entered the tracking number into the website he gave me of the shipper, it showed my order, where it was being packed, and delivery was ready. Jefferson and I talked more and more leading up to this mission, briefings, and everything that was going on. He told me to let his son know about me, and his son couldn't wait to meet me. I was in love with this man, or the idea of a great life, or what he sold me. We kept talking every night to the point I was up half the night, then I'd go to work. He asked me again if I could make another payment on his loan to the lady in Georgia because his account was frozen by his commander until this secret mission would be complete. I made the payment. I felt I owed him this as his friend Victor gave me such a discount on the lumber for my fence. We had made plans to meet, and if everything went smoothly as it did online and in chat, we would probably be together for a very long time. Jefferson confessed to me that he never had felt so much love for one woman in his life. Even his wife who died, he said he didn't love her as much as he loves me. I was shocked by this confession, but felt it was genuine in his voice. He told me life was so hard in the military, and he was doing these missions so he could buy a house on some land and we could live our lives together. He actually asked me to start looking at homes for sale in my town or area that I would like. I told him I love my home and the land I live on, but sometimes it can be a bit much, and my house is old. He told me that once his mission is done, he'll buy a new home for me. I told him he doesn't have to do that, but he told me he wants a nice brand new home, at least 5 bedrooms for us to live in together as a family, and a home that doesn't need repair. It would be brand new. He sent me pictures of rings as well and asked me to pick out what I like. Most of the rings listed on the website he gave me were $10,000 and $15,000 diamond rings. I told him those are far too expensive, and why do you want me to pick one? He told me he wanted to marry me and he knows that my ring style and size, so he can find something, and when he returns to the States, he will come to live with me, we'll buy our home, our life, we'll get married, and he is sure he wants me as his forever love and his wife. But by this time, I was head over heels for him. We would talk all the time, day and night. He would even sneak out of missions to call me. This, however, took a toll on his phone's bank, and he was running out of time and data often, and they were charging him double roaming due to being in another country. It got to where I would buy him between $200 and $500 a week in iTunes cards. The amounts would increase as we talked more. He went on his final mission, and the days leading up to the mission, we would talk constantly. He said his commander gave him and his 2 other military group 2 days off of freedom to talk as much as they wanted on the phone to their wives or girlfriends. As the mission, they would not be able to take their phones, and the commander would lock their phones up in an office for security reasons. We talked on both nights. He sang to me. We shared our dreams, and I even showed him some houses I had found online, and we picked out a beautiful home site. He said for me to call the real estate company and builder to inquire about the home. It was on a new neighborhood being built. He said he would be paying cash for the home once the mission was done and to ask him what a cash offer price be accepted. I told him it's a bit more complicated than that. You just can't ask for a lower price because it's cash. We would have to ask the company and the builders and the sellers, and it would take a bank funded full amount transfer. And if they agree, we would make an offer letter and go from there, as his mission would be completed and he would be coming home in less than 2 weeks. We got more excited as it got closer to us meeting. However, the night before his mission would start, we talked for 11 hours straight on the phone, only taking breaks to eat, use the restroom, and do a few little things around my house. He said all the other soldiers were talking to their wives, and he was the only one without a wife. He just had a girlfriend. But I told him I would marry him if he asked. He then asked me over the phone, and I said yes, but I want a proper proposal in person, and he promised it. I had given him my address early on in our relationship. I was scared of his mission, but I knew it would be okay. I felt in my heart this man and I would be together forever. A few hours before we said goodnight, he told me he would be out of contact with me for about 5 days. The mission had changed slightly, but that he would be in touch on the sixth day once he returned. He gave me the phone number to his best friend and his sister where his son was staying, just in the event if something happened. I would have their numbers as well as their email addresses to check on his son and if I needed to talk or anything. I told him to give my number to them too in case something happens, we can be in touch. He said he did, and we said our goodbyes, and he told me it's not goodbye, but see you soon, my love. He told me to watch my mailbox as a surprise was coming to my home. I suspected it was flowers or something sweet. He then asked me if I would be able to make one more loan payment on his foot surgery loan. I told him it's a lot of money, but he told me it was the last loan payment and he would pay me back double when we met, and not to worry about it. He would get paid from the military. And he didn't want to get in trouble for not paying the loan while on a mission, as it would break his concentration and he'd be worried about the loan and about failing as a military soldier on a mission, worrying about this overdue loan bill. He said it was a distraction and he could get hurt or worse if he doesn't do his job exactly as he's supposed to, and his mind was elsewhere, worrying about paying bills. I told him I would send the money to the same person I had prior. Jefferson told me he loved me so much, and we prayed over the phone for his safety during his mission. We hung up, and I cried. I was so worried he wouldn't be safe. I remember praying for him again and again after we had hung up. Well, I didn't hear anything, which I knew would be the case, and 3 days after we hung up, I received a delivery to my house. It was a small box marked with a return label of JS Factory. Inside was a box with a ring. It was identical to the ring he had me pick out from the website, which was nearly $9,000. I remember thinking how beautiful. This man is so real. I put the ring in my hand and took a picture and texted it to Jefferson, telling him this was too much. Of course, he did not read a reply because he was on a mission, but I just wanted to tell him about it. I put the ring in my home safe. I didn't want to wear it until he was by my side, but I felt he truly loved me. As a side note, this is when you should question how a person who claims they can't access their bank to buy iTunes or pay a so called loan can afford or be able to magically order or buy something online for you and have it mailed to your home. Each night I continued to pray for us. The realtor and builder reached out about the home site and let me know she does have potential buyers for the home spot and we could make an offer. I explained to her that my better half was deployed at the moment, but we did want this home being built very much, and that he would return home soon. And if there's any way to hold off and save the land and the building project, I let the realtor know that my partner's in the military. She said she would relay the message to the builder and that he is also a retired Navy veteran, and we'll see what he comes back with. It was one of those companies that bought a bunch of land and then they build homes on the land. I let her know what offer would be made, and it was a few thousand more than their asking price, and that my better half was finishing up his time in the military. He would be retiring, so we want this home to be our forever retirement home. The company called me back the next day and let me know that the other buyer who wanted that plot of land had backed out, and that he would love to sell to a fellow veteran serving, and he would be delighted to accept our offer. I told the realtor to please draw up the contract and we would be in touch soon as I expected him back. The realtor let me know that earnest money would need to be left to secure everything and told me if we could draw up a check for the earnest money, she would email the contract and how much it would be, and gave us a 3-week extension to get all our paperwork and money in due to the situation with my partner's deployment. I was so happy that everything was falling into place, including the home building site, the house. Life was beautiful. Everything was beautiful, and people at work noticed how happy and content I was. I was walking with a smile and a pep in my step. I shared with a couple of coworkers that I had a new man in my life, but Jefferson told me not to tell them too much as he's in the military and a lot of stuff is classified that he's told me, and I really need to keep our relationship quiet until he is there and can introduce himself in person to friends and family. So even though they notice my happiness, I only told them I have a little special someone in my life and they'll meet him once everything's finished. I was vague, and I don't think Jefferson would disagree with me being vague. Also, as a side note, romance scammers will tell you not to share the relationship with friends and family as they might see the red flags that you don't and try to stop the scammer in his tracks. They often make excuses like being a secret military officer or they want it to be a surprise until they arrive and more. No person should ask you to keep a relationship secret. The realtor seller of the land, we were working on drawing up a contract to build the home, and I did sign a acceptance letter. Jefferson could sign it later when he returned. They said my signature was great to get the ball rolling, and I didn't hear from Jefferson on the sixth day, and in fact, 8 days went by, and I'm really worried. I checked my phone, and he'd not been on WhatsApp, and no messages from him, and he hadn't read any of mine. I would send him photos of me thinking of you, all sorts of messages, so he had something to read when he returned and had his phone again. It was 2 days later that I received a phone call from a Dallas area code. I answered, and a man calling himself Bradley said he was Jefferson's best friend and was trying to reach me. He said he sent me an email, but I didn't respond. Apparently it did, but it had landed in my spam folder, so I didn't see it. He told me that Jefferson and two other men had been arrested trying to cross over the border from Iran to Turkey on a U.S. military base there. He said Jefferson's commanding officer called Bradley to let him know that Jefferson was in prison in Iran and being held as a spy. This was terrible, and I started to cry. Bradley told me that he didn't know if the military could do anything and that the commander said the prison is demanding $30,000 in money to secretly release him and the other soldiers, and that the army has turned their backs on him as they got caught, and that the commander said he should have done a better job and he was careless when he got caught. Bradley gave me the email of the commander and asked me to reach out and see if they can explain what happened. Bradley then told me his son Nuno is very upset. I didn't notice his son's name changed. It was Marvin when I met him, and was crying all the time for his father. I told Bradley I would email the commander and see what's going on, and maybe we need to go to the news media about this, but Bradley told me no. Jefferson would not want that kind of attention, and it might ruin his contract, and the contract he signed said no media ever. I ended up emailing this commander and asking what was going on. He emailed me right away telling me that he needed me to fill out a form of who I am before he releases that information. He sent a form which was asking for my name, address, email, phone number, birth date, mother's maiden name, and the last four digits of my social security number. I filled it out and emailed it back, and he sent it back to me with a stamp on it saying I was approved to be told what's going on. He said his name was Commander Justice Smith, and that Jefferson and two other men were arrested trying to enter the Turkish border illegally through a side roadway, and they were arrested for being spies. He said there was a specific road and plan that Jefferson was supposed to stick to, and he did not. He said he seemed very distracted since meeting me, and he blames me for Jefferson not being on top of his game and duties, as he was always talking about how much he loves me and how he will retire and buy a home, and how I was the new mother to his son, and how we would all be a family, and that he'd forgotten his duties as a soldier. This commander blamed me for everything. He told me that the patrol have him in a prison in Iran and that they want a bribe of $30,000 to release him, and since it's my fault that he was distracted, the Army is seeking payment. The commander told me that I owe this to the Army. I was so upset I didn't know what to think, and yes, I was distracting him by chatting, but I always told him to sleep, and he insisted he stay awake. I told him I'd be here, but he wanted to talk so long that he couldn't resist being around me and we'd stay up all night. I told this commander that I don't know what to do, and he told me if I don't pay the ransom, then Jefferson will be expelled from the Army, his retirement and bonus will be void, and that the Army is not spending money to release him. He told me that the Iranian government and Turkish government official can be contacted through an email, which he gave me and told me the choice is mine. But keep in mind that if I don't pay the ransom, then the Army will come after me for causing one of its soldiers and two other soldiers to be captured, and I'll be charged and fined millions, and I don't want to mess with the USA government or the military, so choose wisely. I emailed the person who was in charge of the capture of Jefferson. His email looked official as it had a government name. As another side note, the email that he provided to her was made to look like a government email. It had government in the email address, but it was a Gmail address at the end of the day. Real government email will not come from Gmail. I emailed this person, who was only known as Murat, and explained the situation. He emailed me back right away, telling me that I would have to make three payments of $9,999 via bank transfer, and he gave me the account to someone's bank in Istanbul, Turkey. It was his first name, and I've included the details. One of the reasons many romance scammers ask for amounts under $10,000 is oftentimes anything over $10,000 can be flagged and requires the sender to fill out tax information or a declaration amount, and that's why they always ask for an amount under $10,000. He told me the first payment can be made now, and he would arrange to bring Jefferson to Istanbul to a hotel. Then a second payment can be made, and when the third is made, he will put him on a plane and fly him home to Texas. My head was spinning, and I asked to speak to Jefferson. He told me no, we have no time for games. Either make the first payment and show him the screenshot of the payment transfer, or he would leave Jefferson in a prison for life. I thought many times during this to call the Department of State, the Army, the mayor, the news, someone to help me, even a recruiting office. But during all this, I was getting emails and messages from Jefferson's commander asking if I've decided to do the right thing or to. I ended up pulling savings and selling off some of my investment stocks to make the first payment. It was actually quite easy as I did the transfer online. I sent the screenshot of the transfer to this guy, and he told me Jefferson would be transported to a hotel in Istanbul within 3 days. He told me once the transfer is done to the hotel, I would need to make another payment. I asked for more time, and he told me no, this must be done. I then got an email from Jefferson's commander asking if I paid them, and I told him yes, the first payment is on its way to Istanbul, and I secured him out of the prison. His commander told me that he would prepare the documents for his release from his missions and get his soldier payment ready. He then asked me if I wanted to see the award letter, and I told him yes, and he emailed me an award letter stating Jefferson would be paid $10 million for his retirement and an additional $3 million for the mission, minus the cost of his capture as he didn't complete the mission, otherwise he would have gotten $5 million. This actually, during this time, made me feel better knowing that he would be getting some of his money and he would pay me back. It was at this time I was in a struggle as I don't have tons of money. I asked if I could speak to Jefferson, and Murat told me no, I have to make the payment, and he would be at the hotel in Istanbul. I scrambled and made the hard decision to sell off some personal things, including my travel camper. I had a fifth wheel travel camper that I used to go RVing and camping. I had paid $26,000 and some change for that fifth wheel 4 years ago when I bought it, and I ended up selling it to a dealership at a loss of $11,000, but it gave me enough to send money for the second payment. I told Jefferson I was told Jefferson was in Istanbul, but now was very sick as he had gotten an infection from a prior foot surgery wound that wasn't closed correctly. It had split, and the doctor would not treat him until the second payment was made. I did the transfer, sent him a copy of the screenshot. He then told me I have 5 more days to send the final payment or all of this would be canceled and they'd send him back to prison. And this is when things get really crazy. Stay tuned for part 2.